Good evening. I'd like to call the 13th meeting of the new Traffic and Planning and Traffic Commission meeting to order. Tonight we're a little short-staffed. There's just going to be 3 of us tonight. And Dave Carter was slated to lead us in the pledge, but I think in honor of our new Traffic Commission, we're going to call on our traffic manager, Dave Rogers, to lead us in the pledge.
An alternate Dave. Please rise and put your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Dave. I thought you forgot it for a minute there, but you did well. Okay, so again, we are missing Mark Armando and David Carter tonight. They both send their regrets. And right now we go into public comments. Do we have any?
Thomas Williams?
So we ask that you come up to the speaker and that you state your name and your city of residence, and just remember that you're limited to 3 minutes, and there's these lights that will prompt you to that. Thank you.
Okay, is this on, off? I'm on, right? Okay, my name is Tom Williams. I've been a resident since 1979, so I'm an oldie. And I live in a nice area in the kind of the northwest quadrant of Geronimo and El Toro, right next to the church there and the AT&T building. And we have a few streets that are being affected by the apartment complex adjacent to us. And it's been going on for 5 years, but it's just constantly gotten worse and worse and worse. The little packet you have in front of you kind of describes what our intent is. And first is a reduction of the impact criteria for on-street parking. Parking. We just feel that we'd like to have it considered to be a little bit lower than 75%. We'd like some of the other cities at 50 or 67. And the reason is I've looked around our community. I've visited some of the other apartments, and they have permitted parking. And there's a reason for it. If you don't have drugs, paraphernalia on your street, one lady was dead in her car. They didn't even know. They were looking for her. We have trash, condoms, beer cans. I mean, it's just a litany of things that go on and on and on. And we've suffered through this to the point that it's ridiculous. And that's all all we're asking is to lower the threshold. That's all. It's pretty simple. And if you would consider it and bring that to the council, we would be greatly appreciative. Ask me something.
Well, let me just say that at this point, your issue is not on our agenda, and we are regulated by the Brown Act. So what I can tell you is that we are listening to your ideas. We have the opportunity to discuss at the end one of our last items, traffic, and my guess is that my colleagues and I will want to ask the council if we can maybe we can ask our staff to come back and show us with great detail the threshold and how it works in our city, and can kind of train us on this.
Perfect.
And then we can go to the council, and hopefully the council will say, okay, Traffic Commission, you can now study this, and you can make some decisions. But until we're A, trained, and B, directed by council, we're just going to have to smile and say, yeah, we're going to listen, and we're going to try and make it work.
So, and I appreciate that. So if you'll just thumb through those and pretend it's your neighborhood.
All right.
You'll get the idea.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you for being patient for 5 years.
Okay.
Hang on. All right, so there are no more public comments, so we will move right into our agenda.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
And a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote. And motion carries 3-0. All right, so that takes us to item number 2, and I'll turn it over to Gail.
Thank you. Item 2 is a use permit to operate a massage establishment in an existing commercial center, and Ron Santos has a report this.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Commission. This item is a request to operate a 3,000 square foot massage establishment in an existing tenant space at the Lake Forest Gateway Shopping Center. The spa, as it would be called, would provide foot and body massage, reflexology, body scrubs, manicures, facials, and facials on both a walk-in and appointment basis. As depicted on the submitted floor plan, the facility would include 8 massage rooms, facial and manicure rooms, foot massage and body scrub areas, a sauna, locker room, employee break room, office, and waiting room. The business would employ 5 people and operate 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. And I should point out that the staff report incorrectly stated 10 p.m. It is in fact 9 p.m. as proposed in accordance with the code. In addition to the use permit requirement, massage establishments are subject to compliance with provisions of Lake Forest Municipal Code Chapter 5.07, a copy of which was provided as an attachment to your staff report. Chapter 5.07 includes an extensive list of facility and operational requirements aimed at protecting the public health, safety, and welfare. The requirements include a Lake Forest issued license, as well as a requirement that all of the massage therapists hold a California issued certification. The license and certification requirements include background checks and completion of a minimum of 500 hours of training at a California-approved massage school. In this instance, Lake Forest Police Services completed the background check in advance of the use permit application process and had no objections to approval of the use permit. Massage establishment license automatically expire after 1 year and must be renewed annually. Licenses may also be revoked by the city manager for violation of any of the applicable regulations. The proposed use complies with applicable parking requirements in the shopping center and would be compatible with surrounding uses, which include various restaurant, retail, and service uses. Staff is recommending approval of the application as proposed, subject to the recommended conditions of approval. To date, we have not received any public comment regarding this application, and that concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is also here, by the way, in case you have any questions for her.
Thanks, Ron. So, does anybody have questions of staff? I have one. I read that they have to reapply after a year?
It would be reapplying for the license, not for the use permit.
Okay, so we're not going to, I mean, we like seeing you, but we don't have to have them come back every year to do this.
Correct.
Thank you. All right. All right, so we'll bring it up here. Does anybody have any comments? Oh, and we'll ask for public speakers, too,
Anna Wong.
and open up the public hearing. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Anna Wong. I live in Newport Beach since 2012, but I live in the United States since 1996. But I'm still learning English. Yeah, so I already have a few stores. One of them is in Anaheim Hill. It's called Bamboo Creek Spa, and another store is all in Ventura County. Also, myself operate a hotel in Anaheim, so I just try to be succeed in Lake Forest. So.
Great. Does anybody have any questions of the applicant? You sound like a busy woman. Well, why don't you just hang tight? You can sit down, and we're going to discuss it for a bit, and then if we have any more questions, you then. Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll bring it up here. Does anybody have any public comments?
I was a little bit curious why the city went from not requiring a license to not requiring a license to requiring a license. What was the background on that?
Commissioner, the change to the city codes corresponded with change in state codes. So the state preempted the city from requiring use permits, and then 8 years later rescinded that prohibition and allowed it once again. And when that occurred, then the city amended the code once again and reestablished the use permit requirement.
I have a couple of comments. The staff report does a real good job of listing all the safeguards that are built into our approval process, particularly for this type of use. Could you help us a little bit? So just our audience would know there's a review by the police department, and ultimately the city manager makes the decision on this. Can you touch on that? I know it's in the staff report. Can you touch upon it?
Sure. So, Chair and Commissioners, there's two distinct approvals that the applicant would need. There's the use permit, which is the subject of tonight's hearing, and there's the massage establishment license, which would follow. So the city manager's authority is with respect to the massage establishment license, and the planning commission has the authority with respect to the use permit. The requirements that are applicable to the massage establishments are based on the requirements stipulated in Chapter 5.07, which include the of all the therapists by the state. Those certifications require the 500 hours of training mentioned from an approved, California-approved massage school. There are inspection provisions in the code. There are operational provisions, hours of operation. There's provisions in the code that relate to cleanliness of the facility, facilities that are available within the massage establishment, etc.
All right, thank you.
Who enforces the conditions of the use permit?
The city would be responsible for enforcing the conditions of the use permit as well as the municipal code requirements.
So the sheriff's department and the city, does code compliance take care of that, or who specifically? You talked about the license. It doesn't sound like that's, I guess I'm not clear on how you enforce that.
Code enforcement via police services and code enforcement work together with respect to the enforcement. The police services manager has historically been in charge of doing the inspections and is also administers the licensing. If there were complaints of the nature that related to a criminal action, then of course police services would be involved. But if it's strictly violation of the municipal code, for example, an hours of operation violation, that would be code enforcement.
So you're comfortable with this, Ron?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Anybody else? Close the public hearing?
I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing and that we approve the use permit as proposed.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Well, actually, we already did the discussion. Let's vote. Motion carries 3-0. Congratulations and welcome to Lake Forest. Anaheim Hills has nothing on us. You'll like us. All righty, you're going to move right along to item number 3.
Item 3 is a site development permit for the development of 200 in Portola Center South, and Marie Luna has a staff report this evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. The item is a site development permit for the development proposed in planning area R7 in Portola Center South. Portola Center South is located just south of the intersection of Saddleback Ranch and Glen Ranch Roads. Planning area R7 is located off of Portola Oaks Drive, the primary entrance into the Portola Center South development area. Development within Planning Area R7 requires Planning Commission approval of a site development permit. The purpose of the site development permit is to review street configuration, dwelling unit orientation, site amenities, and other improvements, as well as establish the plotting, architecture, colors, materials, and other details of the proposed project. The site development permit application before you addresses these project components. It proposes 233 three-story attached multi-family condominium units configured within 35 buildings, each with 5 to 8 units, and each unit having an attached two-car garage. In addition, the project includes recreation areas and amenities, as well as landscaping, open parking, and a direct pedestrian connection to Portola Oaks Drive, the primary collector street in Portola Center South. The project is referred to by the applicant as Copperleaf. It is proposed on a 14-acre site bounded by the Portola Center mixed-use project to the west, Glen Ranch Road to the north, a conventional single-family residential project to the east, and a single-family residential project designed as a 4-unit cluster project to the south. The Copperleaf development has 2 vehicular access points, the primary access off of Portola Oaks Drive and a secondary access off of Viejo Ridge Drive. These are 2 new private streets in the Portola South residential community. In addition, to facilitate pedestrian access to community amenities, including the city's 5-acre park located west of the project site, and also the Portola Center South private swim and recreation center located directly east, the applicant has added stairs and an accessible ramp to a portion of the project facing Portola Oaks Drive. According to the area plan, Portola Oaks Drive is the planning area's promenade street, and pedestrian access is encouraged. The 233-unit project, comprised of 35 buildings, designed in combinations of a 5-plex, 6-plex, 7-plex, and 8-plex project, exhibits 3 architectural styles, including Spanish Revival, Old Santa Barbara, and Italianate. These 3 styles are each executed in a different but complementary color. These are well-articulated buildings with varied roof lines, and they include architectural features such as wrought iron balconies, decorative shutters, tiled decorations, and decorative tiled arches around the inset entries, as well as variations between the first, second, and third stories. The buildings, which include a mix of units, include up to 6 different floor plans that range from 2 to 4 bedrooms, starting at 1,200 square feet and just over 2,300 square feet. Units accessed along the front of the buildings are accessed via pedestrian walkways, which are landscaped with a variety of trees, shrubs, and ground cover. Units accessed along the rear are accessed directly via their own attached 2-car garage. Garages are accessed via private drive aisles located within the project site. To break up the visual monotony of a line of garage doors have been designed with windows, and they have been separated by landscape pockets containing decorative shrubs and ground cover. The Copperleaf project, in addition to providing each unit with a 2-car garage, includes 193 open parking stalls for a total of 659 parking spaces. This includes 1 parking space above the city's parking requirements for multifamily projects. The city's parking regulations for multifamily homes is based on the number of bedrooms per unit. On that basis, the project meets the city's parking requirements. Of the 193 open parking stalls provided, 47 parking stalls are designed solely for guest use. Should there be occasion for overflow parking, additional parking can be accommodated along the private streets directly adjacent to the project site. To maintain the project's parking provisions, the applicant has included a parking management plan as part of the project's CC&Rs. The parking management plan indicates garages are to be solely used for the parking of vehicles, and that guest parking spaces are to be exclusively reserved for guests and shall be designated as such. The parking management plan requires the association retain a parking patrol service to assist in parking enforcement. These requirements are included in the resolution as conditions of approval. The project, in addition to providing landscaping in compliance with the Portola Center area plan, also proposes over 5,700 square feet of recreation amenities, including 2 play lots for children of varying ages with benches and shade structures, a regulation-sized bocce ball court with benches and shade structure, 3 picnic and/or game table areas with benches and shade structures, a fenced dog park with a dog play structure, benches and shade structure, and benches strategically placed throughout the site, along with trash receptacles and doggy cleanup stations. The project as designed is in compliance with the general plan, the zoning ordinance, and the area plan. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the site development permit, subject to the conditions in the resolution. I'm available to answer any of your questions, and the applicant is in the audience as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie, and welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have speakers tonight, Peggy? Mike Recupero?
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Mike Recupero. I represent Land C. We appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight. We just wanted to thank staff for working with us over the last year and a half on this project and for that complete staff report and the presentation tonight. We have the project manager, vice president of Land C here tonight, our landscape architect, our architect and civil engineer, in the event you have any specific questions. I'm not going to reiterate what Ms. Luna told us, but we think that this is a really neat addition to the city of Lake Forest. It's not the highest end in terms of a price point community, and it's kind of an expression of what the city feels is appropriate to provide housing for all sorts of different types of people. However, you will find this is a highly amenitized community, and really a lot of credit goes to the staff for working with us and giving us suggestions as to how to make this community more livable with the bocce station, or the bocce court and the dog park and the tot lots, etc. And also the community has turned out to really be a little more walkable than it was initially submitted as, and we appreciate that as well. So we will be available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Are there more speakers? Okay. So let's, any questions of staff?
One question, you said that the parking requirement, they're one over the parking requirement in this development. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, they're over the parking requirement by 1 parking space.
I had a question about that. It looks like most of the guest parking is down at one end of the track. Is that correct?
They're going to have to submit a parking plan to us before we issue any building permits. That is one of the conditions of approval. I think they are still trying to figure out how they're going to lay out their parking. Some of it depends on where their accessible units will be, because the handicap parking will need to be provided near those accessible units. So some of those visitor spaces will change. I think for the purpose of this application, they needed to demonstrate that they could provide 47 guest parking spaces, because that is the requirement per code.
And that includes the provisions for handicap.
Correct.
In terms of their parking plan, how do you deal with the fact that most of that parking is on that one side of the track? It looks like there's very little parking on the right side of this map that I see here. Is that correct?
I think there's parking really throughout the project. The fact that each unit has a 2-car garage, the parking does meet the requirements for each of the units. In fact, they meet not only the guest parking spaces, but parking for the number of bedrooms provided. One of their units, in fact, does have the option of providing a den. According to our code, any time that you provide a den, an additional percentage of parking space is required. It very well could be that some of their residents will not want the den amenity added, because that'll be an added price point. So in reality, there could be additional parking spaces provided.
You mentioned in the presentation they can park along, you said there's parking along the private streets. Is that within the tract, if there's all these garage doors? Or
No,
I'm
it's
trying to figure out how that's working.
It would be along Portola Oaks Drive and also Rancho Viejo Road. These are private streets. Directly adjacent to the project, at least on one side of the streets, if they say that there were to be a party and there would be overflow parking, we would prefer that they park in the private streets as opposed to taking up spaces in the recreation center. And so the streets directly adjacent can provide for that overflow parking.
Yeah, that was my concern. It looks like the parking is really tight here, no matter how you configure it.
I like the parking management plan. I mean, if the parking is tight, there's going to be, I think that's very innovative, and it's something that I don't think we've seen before, at least in my tenure here, that where they come in and they're going to be monitoring that traffic on a regular basis. So that's kind of a cool feature. You don't see that, certainly not the gentleman who was here at the beginning of the meeting. He probably would like a parking manager. Well, it's pretty specified in the parking management plan.
It's on page 103 of your packet.
Yeah. I think it's very, very clever and very clear, but I did receive a call from Dave Carter, and although he did not voice any objection to the project, he did have a question, and I think it was answered, but I just wanted to clarify, because he did ask me to ask the question regarding the second-story balconies and what the developer plans to do with regards to the noise attenuation. And the developer has told me personally that it's probably going to be glass. Gail said it might be plexiglass, but there is going to be something on the balconies that would take care of the noise issue. But that's going to come out through your process, right?
Right. They did submit a preliminary noise assessment, and I believe there might be a copy of that in your packet.
Yeah, there was a big study on it.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that is what the noise assessment determined, that the second-story balconies for certain buildings, certainly the ones that would face Glen Ranch Road, need to be mitigated by some sort of a glass or plexiglass barrier. Subsequent to that, and they have is an interior noise study demonstrating that the interior noise levels with the mitigation provided will meet the city's interior noise standard, which is 45 CNEL. The CNEL is a noise measurement based on the noise contour lines of the area. And so prior to issuing a building permit, the recommendations of that noise study would need to be shown in the building construction plan.
Thank you, Marie. And Dave didn't have any other comments, but that was one, and I will pass that on to him. Does anybody else have comments on the project?
I do. Interesting that the proposal that the utilities and the streets and the lighting are all private, so it would be paid by the association. So there's little cost to the city on those improvements, and I think that's a plus for the city. Let me see if I understand here. We're going to be approving a site development permit for 233 units with the appropriate parking. Does that mean that they can still move the parking spaces around on the site plan? Because if they do that, they have to move the units.
No, I don't think so much that they're going to move the parking spaces, but rather assign the visitor parking spaces designate which spaces are visitor and which spaces are handicapped. So as they design the interior of the units, whatever units are allocated to be accessible, code requires that you provide an accessible parking space close to that unit.
Good.
So their designation will be determined.
I understand. I have a question of the applicant, if I can continue.
Yes, of course.
It's interesting that you have a significant range of size of units and types of unit, which will appeal to people in different economic situations. Have you gotten a rough idea what the starting prices of these units, and like the smallest one and the biggest one, what they're going to range in?
You know, we initially did kind of market research at the beginning, which changes over time. I'm really reluctant to talk about pricing. I've done this before, and pricing changes over a period of time, whether it's 6 months or a year. So with all due respect, I'd prefer not to answer questions about pricing. But to your point, our intent is to give entry-level product to a variety of different families and individuals.
Right. I was just curious. I don't need to have the information.
Thank you.
I have two simple questions for you. Looking at your parking plan, you talk about a parking patrol. Does that work 7 days a week, 5 days a week? How often do you plan to have that patrol operating?
So the parking patrol is going to be part of the CC&Rs and has already been adopted in there. I don't think there's a schedule per se of a parking patrol, to the best of my knowledge, because this is going to be worked out going forward. I will check with the client, if you don't mind.
No, please do.
Yeah. We do not yet have a schedule.
Because I would think that you have certain times of the week where you'd have more of a problem than others.
I think you're right.
I guess, would the plan be to have parking patrol operative during those peak parking periods? Or I'm trying to understand what your intention is with that, so we understand how that
Well,
works.
it was, we worked with the city. There have been parking patrols in other communities around Orange County. Take a number of different flavors. I think that you're right, that we would probably be more likely to use the parking patrol when it's busy and there's a potential for a problem, whether it's people parking in the community that don't belong there, or people have 6 cars and they decide to use up the guest spaces. So in our kind of experience with these parking patrols, we try to define when they're most effective to be there. But we don't know, for example, we couldn't commit that they're there at 7 a.m. on a Sunday, to 12 p.m.
I'm not trying to push it to that level. I'm just trying to understand what your intention is and how you use it as an enforcement tool. The other question, you talked about electric vehicles. How many spaces do you propose you might use for electric charging stations?
One moment, please. That number has not been decided.
I got the impression that that would be up to the Board of Directors of the Homeowners Association if they, in fact, wanted to allocate stations for electric vehicles, and that it wasn't really a particular delineation in your proposals and plans. Am I correct?
Yes.
I think it's a good idea. I like your parking plan. I like the things you're trying to do to mitigate the tight parking there. I have no problem with it. I'm just trying to understand how it works, because we've seen other parking plans, and I'm just trying to figure out how this one was unique compared to some of the others that we've seen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any more questions, Robert? Okay, of the applicant? No. Staff, okay.
Just for us to understand, this project was initially approved by the City Council in 2013. At that time, they had a development agreement. And basically, for that planning area, they're entitled to plus or minus 233 units.
They're entitled up to 257 units.
157, thank you. My concern is, and I have a question to ask you, if we look at the size of the units, they go from about 1,200 to, I can't remember.
2,300.
2,300. Okay, and let's say there's roughly an average of 2,000 per unit. You have 233 units, that's 466,000 square feet. If you factor in two-car garage, that's 400 square feet times 233, you got about another 100,000. So we're looking at 566,000 square feet relative to the site that's 14 point some acres. That project is approaching 0.8 floor area ratio. Now, my concern is that if the units were 800, 1,000, 1,200, they would actually be half of the density that's there. So I'm talking about density not so much in the number of units, but the size of the units. So I don't know if you guys can comment on that, if it is a 0.8 floor area ratio.
I didn't check the floor area ratio, but the zoning for that site is medium density residential. And that allows a range of 15 to 25 dwelling units per acre. The site stands at 16.67 dwelling units per acre.
Okay. All right. And the old rule of thumb was 20 dwelling units per acre was an apartment project.
I think you're right on that.
Well, my concern, I don't know that you have any answers, of course, but I'm just concerned that with the size of the units, that is a very dense project. Like I said, if the units were smaller individually, right, that they really got double the square footage out of that site, and to me that's too dense. I don't know if anyone else has a comment.
Well, maybe I can ask a question here. Is it our job to determine the square footage of each unit that the applicant is proposing? And I asked that of...
I think I could give you some perspective on this. Like many of our other projects that we've seen in the opportunity study area, the density and intensity and development standards are all established at the time the area plan is written. So there's a very detailed planning document. This one was approved in 2013 that talked about the character and what they were trying to do. And it was, as Marie mentioned, this is a multifamily site that has a density of more than 16 units per acre. If we go in and we look at the actual development standards as well, and the other information and the verbal description of the area, we have a 45-foot height limit and a 70% building site coverage. So it was envisioned as dense, and I think one of the aspects we were dealing with overall in the opportunity study area, we have a lot of single-family detached, and we were looking for projects to include multifamily as well. This one, interestingly, the one thing the area plan doesn't comment on is whether it's ownership or it's rental. And so they map this as a condominium project, so this is a rental project at that density. And the parameters and the feel of that was all part of the area plan when that was approved in 2013.
When the master track map for Portola South 15353 was amended in 2015, it was amended so that this would be a multifamily condominium project for sale units. So it was envisioned as a condominium project at that time and not just a rental project.
Clarification. It is not and it will not be a rental project?
No, it's to be a condominium for sale project.
Thank you.
People could buy it and rent it, to clarify.
Yes, but the developer will be selling the units, not renting them.
Correct. Well, I'd like to comment that I think that the architecture and the landscaping is conducive to what I think we're looking for in Portola Ranch. I love your Santa Barbara, your Italian. I think it's a very good feel and a very good look, and I think it's going to blend well with the community. And I'm glad that you had a good result working with staff, because I know you have worked long and hard on this one. And thank you, Marie, for all of your efforts. Does anybody else have any more questions of the applicant? Any more topic up here?
Comment, I think for this style of project, with this type of density, I think you've done a really good job of trying to make it work. And I think you ought to be commended for that. I'm just curious, have you done this three-story style of building in other places, and how successful has that been?
Indeed, the style has been done before in Northern California. It was a raving success. Yeah, in Northern California, a lot of product is three-story because of the prices of land, and it doesn't seem to suffer for any things.
Okay. So how many projects would you say you've done in Northern California with the three-story?
One complete, one nearly complete, and two under construction.
Well,
But the product itself, I'm just talking about the product,
Yeah.
has been successful, yeah.
That'd be very successful. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think you've done a good job on the project.
Thank you.
That might be, Robert, why you feel like it's so, they're large units, but yeah, we're going up. So but the height allows that. Yeah. 2017. So I'd like to ask for that.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing and bring it back up here and approve the staff's recommendation as presented with the conditions that are stipulated in the staff report.
It's been moved. Is there a second? I will second it. All right, let's vote. Motion carries with one abstention. With one no, sorry. Motion carries. I'm sorry, I misread that. All right, well, congratulations. Welcome to Lake Forest. All right, now we are going to move right along to your planned sign program.
Yes, this item is a minor plan sign program for temporary subdivision model home identification for the Iron Ridge community in Portola Center, and Marie also has a report on this.
Yes, Commissioners. The minor plan sign program is for temporary directional model home and welcome center signage for Portola Center South, or Iron Ridge, as it has been named by land. Development is located south of the intersection of Glen Ranch and Saddleback Ranch Roads. It is comprised of 5 planning areas encompassing approximately 95 acres and approved for 546 homes. According to the city zoning ordinance, a minor plan sign program approved by the Planning Commission is required for subdivision and model home identification and directional signage. The sign program before you this evening serves this purpose. The sign program requests approval of 180 temporary non-illuminated signs, including flags, identified within 3 categories: community signage, welcome center signage, and model home signage. Each sign category includes 4 to 5 sign types whose purpose is to identify the Iron Ridge community, the Iron Ridge Welcome Center, and each of the 5 model home complexes. Of the signs proposed, the tallest signs are the flags, which have an overall height of 18 feet and include a 7-foot-tall vertical banner totaling 21 square feet. As a comparison, the flags approved for the Baker Ranch development area are 21 feet tall and also include 7-foot-tall vertical banners. The flags for Iron Ridge are proposed along Glen Ranch Road and Portola Oaks Drive, the primary entrance into Iron Ridge, and also within each model home complex. The largest signs proposed are the 3 welcome center signs, which are just under 8 feet tall and 30 square feet. These signs would be located along Viejo Ridge Drive, the secondary entrance into the Iron Ridge development area. Among the more unique signs included in the sign program are a cutout letter sign almost 3 feet tall and 14.5 square feet, delineating the word Iron Ridge and located adjacent to the Welcome Center entrance. There are also 30 lifestyle graphic signs, 5 for each model home complex. The lifestyle graphic signs measure 4 feet tall and 16 square feet and would be located within the parking lot of each model home complex. All of the signs proposed would be on private property. They are temporary, and they would be removed within 60 days following the issuance of the certificate of occupancy for the last residents in all 5 planning areas. The developer anticipates opening models beginning fall of this year. Pursuant to the city sign code, the proposed signs require approval of the minor planned sign program, and the maximum number, size, and height of the signs is subject to Planning Commission review and approval. Although the zoning ordinance does not specify any regulations for this signage, the proposed temporary signs are typical for a new master plan community. The proposed signs are not excessive in numbers, in staff's opinion. Size or height and number of signs are adequate to help prospective buyers safely navigate the site. The design and proposed colors of the signs are consistent with the character of the new community and will create a consistent temporary sign appearance amongst the different types of homes, model home complexes within the Iron Ridge community. Staff is recommending approval of the minor plan sign program, and I'm here to answer questions, as is the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers? Pardon?
Mike Recupero.
Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, Mike Recupero on behalf of Land C. I don't have any further comments to staff's presentation, but are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of staff? Okay, let's bring it back up here. Close.
Tom, I think you're the lead on this.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing and bring this matter back up, and that we approve staff's recommendations presented for the minor sign program.
We'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. Motion carries 3-0. Okay, moving along. Thank you very much. Good luck. See you in the fall. Gail.
Okay, it's item 5, and it's so exciting. If I had a drum roll, I would start it now. It's the debut item for the Planning and Traffic Commission. Dave Rogers is here this evening with an overview of traffic-related roles and responsibilities.
Thank you, Gail. Just a couple things for your information. This is typically what a traffic commission looks like in terms of an audience participation until it doesn't. And then you typically, it's feast or famine. You'll have no one, or you'll have a big crowd about some issue that they're concerned about. So we'll just have to play it by ear. I just want to assure you that your staff, myself in particular, and of course Doug here, is always available. Between the two of us, we have about 60-plus years of experience in the traffic business. I myself, in my previous life, ran a traffic commission for about 20-something years, and got through that with lots of different issues that came before you, so I am someone you can lean on at any time, and hopefully you have my contact information, and if you don't, we can certainly supply that for you if you have any specific issues related to items or just traffic questions now that you're wearing a second hat up there. Many times you will become a target of people in the community who want to ask you questions of things. So with that preamble there, we'll just quickly discuss what I think the expectations are of your new Planning and Traffic Commission added responsibilities. The first that we have listed here is to review studies. This is something that is pretty common with a traffic commission. Right now we have 3 items for sure that we will bring back to you on a regular basis. One is our annual collision review. We go back, look at the previous year, and just look at collision patterns and trends to see if there's anything that might need to be addressed in some way with some mitigation of some sort. It's just considered good engineering practice to keep an eye on your collision patterns and trends. So we'll bring that back to you at an appropriate time. Our traffic signal master plan, in this case, it's really a way to, again, keep track of intersections that may qualify for traffic signals at some point in the future, and so it's an ongoing list and an ongoing program. Typically, we would bring that back to you once every 2 years with some updated counts, updated information. And also, it creates a convenient way when concerns arise in the community. If there's been a collision of some type, typically at an intersection, one of the common requests is, we think you need a traffic signal out there. This becomes an opportunity for the council or even the commission to recommend additional locations be added to that, and it allows us to make sure that all the locations in the city that are potential candidates get studied on an equal basis, not just because there was an accident out there last week. It doesn't move anything to the top of the list. It really gives us an opportunity to show that we do have a process in place, and it would be added to that. And then third one, which can be a little bit more fun, is capital improvement program. Traffic and transportation related items will now come before the commission first before we make final recommendations to the council on those types of items. That's an opportunity for you and others to help us understand some of the ideas you might have. Some of your daily travels can often speak volumes about where issues might be that we may not know about. Beyond that, the council is currently working their way through a list of items that they also would like you to look at. We are working with them to try and prioritize them and to fit under their current $50,000 budget for studies or additional studies. We were hoping that we could take that item to them to get some additional direction on July 18th. However, some additional comments and suggestions came up fairly late here, and so we will not be able to take that to the commission or the council until the first meeting in August. The idea is obviously once we have that list, along with your annual or biennial studies, we can start to put together a schedule to kind of look at that and understand how much time it's going to take to put some of these things together, so we can give you a heads up when we think items will be coming back for your review. I think that's the primary role and responsibility that the council has asked you to do. However, a typical traffic commission, or in this case our planning traffic commission, also has kind of 3 other traditional roles. One is to review staff recommendations that require city council approval. The gentleman that was here tonight, Mr. Williams, is a good example. If their neighborhood had met the current qualifications for permit parking, it would require council action in order to basically create that permit parking district. Those types of items would now come through the commission first for a final recommendation up to the city council. Another thing that you will be asked to do is to act as an appeal body. Again, it's not uncommon for residents to be working with staff and reach a point where we are helping them to get to a point. We always try to do something we can for them, but perhaps there are situations where we cannot address some of their primary concerns, and they often want to know who else they can talk to. In this case, now, going forward, that will be the Planning and Traffic Commission, who will be acting as an appeal body for those types of requests. And finally, you'll act as a referral body. In this case, it typically would come in 2 ways. One, if we have individuals that show up on non-agendized items, we would ask the commission as a whole to obviously respectfully accept their comments, but in most cases, if it hasn't been, their issue has not been reviewed at all, we would ask that it be referred back to staff directly so we can work directly with the residents. We do our best to try and resolve as many issues as we can at staff level, and so that would be one role. Another one, and we know this is another one the council has been, I think, a happy thing that they're looking forward to be able to refer residents or anyone else who comes before the council and ask for them to review a traffic item. They now have the opportunity to refer it to staff, or in some cases they may refer it directly to the Planning and Traffic Commission, in which case we would do our research and bring that information forward to you. So those are kind of what staff sees as your primary roles and responsibilities. In order for you to become comfortable with some of the topics that we'll be discussing, again, in my experience, providing educational information to everyone up there on the dais, I know Doug probably has too, found to be very beneficial in terms of how you can help to understand what the concerns are. And of course, we speak in a lot of jargon. I do my best to tell a good story and not be full of jargon, but sometimes we have to stoop to that. And so for you to be familiar with some of the things and some of the documents we refer to and some of the, how do I say it, the do's and don'ts of the world of traffic engineering. So we would look to bring back to you, again, kind of on a regular basis till we get through all the topics, kind of a once per meeting if the calendar so, we don't want to bring something to you that's going to take an hour and a half if we've already got 6 planning items on there that you need to review, but we'll time it accordingly. And some of those topics, in my experience, a couple of the more important ones I think you're going to find here that will be useful to you. First one is like traffic engineering basics. When and why do we install stop signs or traffic signals or all the things that you see out there as drivers in the world. There's actually a bit of science and a bit of art behind them, and we hope to get you some information on that so you're comfortable in that. The next item, and I know this is going to be one of the items that the council is going to refer to you in terms of a study, just the general concept of parking and parking issues and parking management. So we have our residential traffic management policy, which was recently updated and adopted by the council, but I think there are things within that policy and some specific conditions that exist out there that they're going to want you to review, and so we will kind of combine all of that into one or two kind of big parking issues to provide you some information. Other ones I won't go over in detail: traffic calming, complete streets, how we operate traffic signals, traffic zone coordination, communication, traffic modeling. All of those I think are useful. We put them together for our, I'll call it your precursor. We had the Citizens Traffic Advisory Group, which was a temporary group to kind of review some of the traffic issues here in the city. I think they all found these to be interesting and informative and helpful in their decision-making process, so we think some of these are probably worthwhile bringing back to you. We would, of course, if you have any specific other topics that you think are traffic-related and you'd like some information on, absolutely, we can add them to the list. Again, the idea is to kind of take all of this, whatever information you give us tonight, and to come back to you with a kind of a schedule of what that's going to look like in terms of staffing, in terms of our ability to kind of turn around some of these items. At a minimum, we would like to bring an educational item to you once per month. If you wanted it more frequently, we could certainly have that as a goal. I can't guarantee you we could get to it every time, but we certainly want to get you through that process. I have no information on here, but we used to have, and Doug probably remembers, we had the Traffic Commissioners Workshop. Do you remember that? The City Traffic Engineers, Association put this thing on it. You would actually go on and it was, I know it was a big ask, but you would go on a Saturday and you'd go to a day-long kind of class, and they would help commissioners understand, again, some of the things that were just described. I have some of the educational material for that. I'll probably try to just maybe push that out to you. It's just kind of a, hey, here's what they talked about. I don't think they're doing it anymore. Yeah, I haven't heard it recently, but it was some good information. So some of that stuff we could push out to you ahead of time. Others we could kind of hold for a more focused discussion. So that's it from terms of a staff presentation. We'd be happy to listen to any comments or concerns or anything else you'd like us to think about forward here. And with that, I'll turn it over to everyone on the dais up there.
Does anybody have any questions of Dave? I bet you do. Go. Well, later on, because
I just had to gather my thoughts.
Oh.
Peggy, could I get the copy of the last parking policy that council adopted? All right. And then with all the discussions that occurred, I realize this is council-driven.
Correct.
We have to pay attention to what it is the council wants and needs.
Correct.
So I had to adjust to that. I'm adjusted. Okay.
Promise?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
There's 7 topics, 5, 6 topics. And my concern was, we're going to be evaluating different items and thinking about it. I think it's very important to accelerate our education. If we did one a month, we would be dealing with the last one 7 months from now, and we would have to do business in that 7-month period. I want to encourage the staff to, we don't have to be rigid to have one every meeting, but as it's appropriate time, it fits. If we had 2 in a month, I wouldn't complain. And it's important that all of us have the same orientation. So the sooner the better.
I agree. Yeah, and like I said, we'll start, I think, the typical things that you're likely to get approached by. So the first couple topics, in terms of just traffic engineering basics, know how to answer those basic questions. The normal answers referred. But to get that in our parking policy and in terms of that is something that we expect you'll get a lot of comments and queries about. So it's kind of why I front-loaded those on the educational topics. The other ones are, I think they're interesting just because we're in the business. Again, can let you answer questions, but we agree. I don't think delaying your education unnecessarily serves any purpose, but we will certainly, I think, shoot for one a meeting. And like I said, depending on how the other items are on there, we'll have to adjust it accordingly. But a lot of the information is also already in a form that it's relatively easy to turn into an educational item for you, because we did a lot of that for the CTAG just about 1.5 years ago. So very similar topics, so it's not like we have to recreate everything. A lot of it is already available. So we think we can turn it around pretty quickly.
There's one topic that bothers me. The nursery property is coming up, and I heard the presentation. And basically they were saying this is what we could develop on this property, but instead we'd like to do residential. And a lot of the people there were concerned about exactly how many cars are going to be going down what street. And my experience for 2 years, it seems that there's a tendency to say, well, the project proposed is actually less than what was intended here, so you don't really know how many cars are going down the street, except you know the impacts are less. And I'm hoping we can overcome that and get to the point of, and I'm sure the residents at Foothill will like to know how many trips are being generated on that. And we historically been very shy on that, and we've done a lot of other detailed requirements for a lot of other subjects, and we've been really light on, let's look at the numbers, the turning movements, and I think that's very important.
Well, certainly, we have an item in here about traffic modeling. We would have our consultant come in and talk to us all a little bit about how, some of the magic that goes into that. We call it, things go into the black box and other things come out. But there is a lot of science behind it. There's a lot of other things that go into it. A lot of issues related to traffic distribution, patterns and trends based on congestion. So it takes into account, the loading on other streets, whether existing or proposed, and how us as human beings tend to operate like water and flow with the path of least resistance. So we can certainly include that kind of information to get you more comfortable with some of the modeling discussions that are likely to occur, especially with Nikasi. You're right. It's the elephant in the room. It's coming up. We've been working with them up to this point. They know we have to create a certain modeling baseline for them to work off of, and so we're working with them towards that. And all of that type of information, we can try to get you some of that information for your review.
I need a little clarification there. I got the impression that Commissioner De Almeida was asking for traffic studies to be incorporated into our Planning Commission decisions. Is that what you were going with?
Well, I was trying to raise the subject
Well, you raised it.
Okay, and I think in the presentation I saw, I don't think it's acceptable simply to say that the traffic that would be generated by proposed residential use on the nursery property is simply less than what they could develop there. And so I think the public's going to want to know how many access points do we have, and what are we actually generating, what are the turning movements here. And, you know, people are overly concerned, I think, but they want to know. And we've had several projects where we just simply said it was like...
Excuse me.
Sorry.
If I could, Nikosi's not on the agenda, so if we want to talk in generic terms about traffic, I think that's okay. And so I think what I wanted to let you know, through the CEQA process, when we do an environmental review of any project, we have to look at what's there on the ground today and what is being proposed. It's called a ground-to-plan analysis. So the CEQA tells us to look at that. Anyone out there may comment, oh, this versus that, or, you know, that. But that's what we would call a plan-to-plan analysis. CEQA doesn't allow us to do that. So your concern is addressed in the proper way we do an environmental analysis. We went through this with the opportunity study as well, where sure, all of the properties that we studied had business park land use designation, but yet the actual environmental document looked at what it was, vacant land to propose residential. So an environmental analysis will give us that information. That's how it's done. What's there on the ground versus what's being proposed. So
I
a
just wanted to
plan-to-plan is an interesting way some people choose to talk about it, but that's not how an analysis is done.
Well, and I just want to clarify that we actually have kind of two separate commissions here. Not going to, and it's my understanding that we're not going to be commingling traffic with our ABC development that comes before us, because that's done prior to the time that's presented to us. Am I correct in that?
Well, one thing we've discussed, like if we had a proposed project, would it come to you just as a traffic and we'll just look at that, and then later we put on a hat and look at the Planning Commission? There are many projects that you look at as a Planning Commission, a site development permit that has, we could discuss traffic, we could discuss on-site circulation, all those aspects. So that stays with the planning review. And likewise, as the Planning Commission, you are in charge of making a recommendation on the environmental document. So in that case, you'll be looking at it as that. So I think the easiest way to look at it, as a Planning Commissioner, you are involved in traffic because it's part of the projects that you review.
Thanks, Gil. Do you have more?
Totally agree with you. Thank you. I just thinking hypothetically, if a development project comes along and there's a traffic study as a part of that, maybe we should, as a commission, look at the traffic study first, because if you go ahead and approve the project, it would make, you know, much difference if we then studied the traffic. So I'm thinking that we ought to look at the consequences, the impacts of the traffic before we actually approve the project.
Well, again, that's actually what occurs. If we had a complex project, the first actions you will take will be on the environmental document. It says recommended actions of the Planning Commission, and the first one, you need to take action on the environmental document. So in essence, you are doing that. And then later you'd be taking your vote on the site development permit, the actual development of the property. But we wouldn't bifurcate projects and say, okay, we've got this project's coming up. For the month of January, we'll only be looking at traffic studies. I mean, you will have the traffic study as part of the environmental document. You'll have the ability to review it because that traffic study is circulated as part of the draft document for 30 days or 45 days. So the information is available well ahead of time.
That's project specific. I think from a traffic perspective, what we hope to get you is a better understanding. It's not for a specific project, but so when you see those documents that are part of your planning responsibility, you'll have a better understanding of how those are developed and how trips are distributed on the system and things like that in a very generic way, but just a better understanding of modeling to help get you to understand some of the specifics you'll see on some projects.
In terms of the education, my thought as I was sitting here is that all these topics are very interesting to me. I find them very interesting. And the more information you could get to me in a written form, where I can digest it and think about it and then come and ask you questions about it I think would be really helpful.
We'd be happy to give you the link to the manual we work from.
Because that could be very useful. 'Cause my feeling is some of these things, we might want to go back and have some type of a reference going forward that we could look at. Because we're not going to remember all this. I mean, I'm not that good. But I think that
If we, yeah.
the education is very valuable, and I think that we'll need some kind of an ongoing reference to help us, in specific instances.
Certainly,
to do that.
if not physical documents, links and other things
Well,
to
yeah,
some
electronic
of
documents
some of
are
the
fine.
things that we use on a regular basis. That in my case, I'm very old school. I still like them right here on the shelf. Somehow flipping a page here seems easier for me than that. So I know what you're saying in terms of trying to.
But I think that might also help accelerate our learning curve, because we can read it, and then if we have questions, we can come in and talk to you about it, get that. So, but I think this is, what you've shown here is interesting. I think this can be an exciting time. I think we can get a lot of good things done.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Robert. I'd like to address Mr. Williams' comment and ask if we could ask staff to maybe put top on our agenda education on the traffic management program, or the, what do you, what is that called?
A residential traffic management policy or programs.
Policy,
yes.
yeah. I think in response to Mr. Williams, and I believe he's been to the council, and I know he's been to staff, and they're not happy with the answers, that we need to understand why it's 75 and why it's not 50. So could we put that on our, one of our first topics?
Right, we can certainly move that up in terms of educational. Like I said, I'm just based on some of the information I've seen, I know the council is going to want you to tackle parking perhaps even more broadly in terms of specific, in terms of, okay, parking manual and, this neighborhood or this street, we're concerned about this, what can we do here and there? So it is probably the topic that is most likely to get appealed to you also.
Right,
We
so
don't get-
learning
yeah.
about it, what we have and what other cities have to begin with might be a good start.
Right, I think
I don't know that we need to have 2 or 3 topics every meeting. I don't even know if we have to have 2 or 3 topics every month. I know when I discussed it with Gail, we were going to start with 1 topic a month.
And some of them will be pretty meaty that you might roll it to the next meeting just because you want to continue the conversation.
Yeah, and I don't want to burden staff with, you guys are busy, and although, we are answering to the public, but this is a whole new commission, and we don't need to learn it all in 2 months. We have time. So I would hesitate from overburdening everybody. I think it's a change for our planning department to throw this on them as well, and so I just want to be cognizant of the fact that we're not going to become geniuses on traffic overnight, and for me, that's okay.
And we appreciate the idea that, front-loading the things that you're most likely to be dealing with, sooner rather than later is the appropriate way to go.
Could you contact Mr. Williams and let him know that we did, in fact, discuss his request and asked it to be put on the next appropriate agenda?
Right, as part of your educational and/or council-referred reviews related to parking issues, it's something you do want to take a look at.
Thank you, because we would really not want to mess up our first public speaker on this, on our first night of the commission.
I have a comment.
Sure.
Doug and Dave, I want to echo the comments that Tom has made. I look forward to this. I'm willing to put in the time. I'm really interested in sort of a magic that happens in the prediction business. And I want to encourage the two of you, if you come across an interesting article, as we always do, I wouldn't be offended if you forward it to my email. Thank you.
We will absolutely do that.
Okay.
All right, with that, we'll just move right along on our agenda. If we want to close that, do we need to close that public hearing? Or is that just an informational?
It was just receive and file. It wasn't a public hearing.
Okay, receive and file. We did it. Okay, so, city attorney comments.
No comment.
Planning director.
I was just going to let the commission know there's a couple of conferences coming up. And we'll send some information out to you. One is, it has always been very popular, a one-day conference put on by the Planning Directors Association, and it's scheduled in the month of October. Last year it was at the Nixon Library. There's also the statewide planning conference. This year it's in Sacramento, so we'll send you some information, and you can contact Peggy if you're interested in any of those items.
Hopefully, it's not between the 19th and the 26th of October.
I believe it's October 5th, but don't
All
quote
right.
me on that.
Is that it, Gail? All right, how about our traffic control? Doug, what's your title?
Traffic engineering consultant.
Okay, who do we call on as we call on Gail for the end of the meeting? Is it Dave or Doug? All right, Dave, we heard a lot from you. Can we just call on Doug tonight? And then you went on and on and on. Let's hear from.
You say ditto, or
Ditto, no comment.
All right, you can. No comment, Dave? Thanks. Yeah. All right. Tom?
I think this is a very interesting evening. I think there's a lot of good things that are going to come out of what we've done. I think the project we approved tonight, I think, will go in the direction of allowing more affordable housing in the city, which we haven't seen a lot of in some of these projects. So I think that's helpful. And the thing with the traffic, I'm really looking forward to that. I think there's an opportunity for us to do some real good here. Maybe we can help move some things along that haven't moved as well as they could have. And again, I appreciate the work that staff has done to put all this together. It's a lot of work, a lot of effort, and really appreciate what you're doing over there, especially with this sudden change of having the ball game switched underneath you. We appreciate all you're doing to make that work. And just want you to know how much I appreciate all that you do, all of you. Thank you.
Robert?
I want to start off with complimenting the staff. We lost one, but what I wanted to say is the staff report on the plan for the massage thing was very well prepared and organized, and all the safeguards were in there. It was very well done. And then secondly, I want to compliment the applicant today with the 233 units. I thought the graphics and the information they submitted, there wasn't a thing I could find to have a question. It was a very adequate, well, I shouldn't say adequate, a very comprehensive disclosure of what that project was. So, and I know the staff, I don't know behind the scenes how much of that you engineered, but that combination, I'm sure you were driving the bus, and that was very comprehensive. Good example. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Well, I would just like to say thank you to the 4th of July committee and everybody that put tireless hours into the parade. I think the day was a great day. I am going to do a Yelp review on the train that you put us on this year, Peggy. And next year, just put a bottle of Dramamine next to me. It went round and round and round. Yeah. I had my... Yeah. But anyway, it was a great day, and it's a great tradition for the city of Lake Forest, and we're blessed to have it. So with that, I would like to call this meeting over until July 27th. So we're adjourned.